What if I told you that one boy, born in the frozen wilderness of Mongolia, would rise to command the deadliest army the world had ever seen and carve an empire so vast it spanned continents, leaving entire cities in ashes and rivers running red with blood? This is not a story of diplomacy or negotiation or peaceful expansion. This is a story of ruthless ambition, calculated terror, and military genius. This is a story of Genghis Khan, the man who became the unstoppable storm across Asia and Europe, a name whispered in fear for centuries. By the end of this journey, you'll understand not just how he conquered, but why he remains one of the most terrifying figures in history. The Mongolian steppe is a harsh, unforgiving place. Winters bite winds whip, and survival is earned through courage and cunning. It was here, in 1162, that Temujin was born. The boy's early life was shaped by loss. When he was 9, his father, a minor tribal chief, was poisoned by a rival clan. Suddenly, Temujin's family was cast out, left to wander the frozen plains with nothing but their wits and their will to survive. Hunger was constant. Danger lurked at every river, every ridge. But hardship forged resilience. Temujin learned the law of the steppe. Loyalty is fragile. Strength is everything, and betrayal can come from your own blood. He also learned observation, the key to understanding men and tribes, and ultimately the key to domination. Even as a boy, he showed glimpses of the mind that would later terrify nations. He learned alliances could be made and broken, that intimidation could be a weapon as sharp as a sword, and that a single decisive act could determine life or death. The seeds of Genghis Khan were sown in these cold, desolate plains. As Temujin grew, he began to gather followers, but unlike other tribal leaders, he valued skill and loyalty over birthright. A poor warrior who fought bravely could rise to command. A noble-born coward would be discarded. This meritocracy created an army unlike any other, loyal not to tradition or family, but to Temujin himself. His followers were bound by respect, fear, and the promise of reward. Betrayal shadowed every step. Rivals from his own tribe tried to assassinate him. Temujin survived, not through brute force alone, but by carefully weaving alliances, marrying strategically, and never underestimating the cunning of enemies. By 1206, the tribes of Mongolia finally recognized the supremacy. Temujin was proclaimed Genghis Khan, the universal ruler. His eyes, however, were set beyond the steppes. He would not stop at uniting Mongolia. He would conquer the known world. Genghis Khan understood that fear could be as powerful as swords. His armies were lightning fast, disciplined, and trained to kill efficiently. He didn't just defeat enemies, he annihilated them. When a city resisted, he often gave them a choice: surrender and live, or resist and face complete destruction. The results were terrifyingly effective. News spread faster than his armies. Resist the Mongols, and your city would vanish, your population slaughtered, your rivers running red. One of the most infamous examples was a campaign against the Khwarezm Empire. When the Shah of Khwarezm executed Mongol envoys, Genghis Khan's wrath was merciless. Entire cities were razed. Survivors were scattered or executed. It was terror used as a weapon, calculated and precise. But Genghis was not mindless cruelty. Cities that surrendered peacefully were spared. Artisans and skilled workers were absorbed into his empire. He understood psychology. Fear could conquer where armies alone might fail. Genghis Khan's army was a marvel. Every soldier knew his place. Units were organized in tens, hundreds, thousands, and 10,000s. Orders flowed instantly, allowing him to move hundreds of miles faster than his enemies expected. He pioneered tactics still studied today: the feigned retreat, the encirclement, the use of light cavalry for reconnaissance and terror. Archers could fire accurately while riding at full gallop. Hidden units waited to strike from unexpected angles. Cities that thought themselves safe often fell, without ever seeing the enemy until it was too late. Even siege warfare, historically a weakness for nomadic armies, was mastered. Genghis Khan adopted techniques from Chinese engineers, building catapults, battering rams, and even early forms of gunpowder artillery. No fortress could withstand his patience, cunning, and relentless force. He also deployed spies, scouts, and psychological tactics. Rumors, deception, and misinformation softened enemies long before the first arrow was loosed. By the 1220s, Genghis Khan's empire expanded far beyond Mongolia. Central Asia, Persia, the Silk Road, and the Russian steppes fell under his control. The siege of Samarkand was legendary. Wealthy, fortified, and proud, the city seemed untouchable. Yet, Genghis's patient strategy and ruthlessness prevailed. After weeks of siege, the city fell. Traders, artisans, and scholars were either recruited or executed. The Mongols were both destroyers and nation builders, terrifying yet methodical. No army, no matter how large, could resist his speed and intelligence. From frozen mountains to scorching deserts, his forces adapted and overwhelmed. Defeat was inevitable for those who opposed him. Genghis Khan's campaigns came with an unimaginable human cost. Scholars estimate tens of millions died during his conquests. Entire civilizations were destroyed. Cities like Herat and reshape, Bokhara were leveled, their inhabitants killed, enslaved, or scattered. Yet, paradoxically, his empire fostered trade and cultural exchange. The Silk Road thrived under Mongol protection. Communication networks and law codes brought stability to vast regions. In destruction, there was also order, innovation, and economic growth. This duality, brutal conquest paired with governance, makes him a uniquely fascinating figure. A man who could slaughter tens of thousands also created the infrastructure for an empire to last centuries. Genghis Khan died in 1227, though the exact circumstances remain a mystery. Some say a fall from his horse, others hint at assassination. Regardless, his death did not halt expansion. His sons and grandsons continued to expand the Mongol Empire, eventually creating the largest contiguous empire in history. Today, historians debate his legacy. Was he a monster, a visionary, or both? The answer may lie in the scale of his ambition, the genius of his strategy, and the terror he inspired. He reshaped the world in ways no other leader has. Genghis Khan was more than a conqueror. He was a storm of strategy, terror, and ambition. Cities burned, armies fell, and yet trade, law, and communication flourished in the empire he created. Imagine the fear he inspired. Imagine the sheer scale of his vision. Imagine the legacy that still echoes across continents today. Genghis Khan did not just conquer land. He redefined what it meant to wield power. And though centuries have passed, the shadow of the Mongol Empire still stretches across history, reminding us of both the darkness and brilliance of human ambition. The brutal genius of Genghis Khan is not a tale of the past. It is a warning and a lesson, echoing through the ages.